Hello everyone, this is Phoeboi. I'm just gonna sort of ramble about how I made these shaders and how I implemented them into White Knuckle. Now this isn't really a educated video, this is more so just a ramble on my part. Mostly doing this just so that other people can possibly make their own shaders as well. So I just did this one that just turns your stamina into a hue shift. You could technically do whatever you want with the shaders, just be warned and be careful. Shaders are an easy way to mess up your GPU, so just be careful working with shaders. Anyways, there are three parts to how this works. There is the mod part, which is the code that injects my shader into the game. Then there is the shader itself, which is done in a separate Unity project. And then the cosmetic, setting up the cosmetic to actually use the shader. I will go over just the code first, because I think that's the most important part. It's what actually injects it in. So this right here, this is what I'm doing. It's a harmony patch, essentially, to the cosmetic hand item script. Specifically, its initialize function. What I'm doing here is that I'm just doing a postfix so that after the cosmetic hand is initialized, I then go in and I'm like, hey, let's load our shader from a asset bundle. And that is this asset bundle right here, which is this PWKS2H bundle that I created. So at the end, I just go, hey, if our base game cosmetics don't have our material, we go in and I just sort of force load it from the asset bundle. And then all of this is just fancy stuff of like, oh, maybe it wasn't found in the bundle, or okay, we're scanning, checking to see if it's in there, initializing the material, and then setting it as the global material swap ref. We're just setting its variables, essentially. That's all we're doing here. And then this is just fancy Harmony stuff. You don't really need to understand how the code works. I barely understand it myself, but this is essentially just me forcing it into the game. That's the code part. What's the fun part is the actual shader. So in a separate Unity project, that's where I create the shader and the material and bake them into an asset bundle. Now the shader here, this is our shader base inventory. This was gladly given by the White Knuckle devs Holly. Should be in the modding discussion here. This is the most recent version we have as of now. Hopefully we can keep this updated as the game updates. I don't know for sure. And then as for this Dark Machine.cg Inc., this is needed for the shader to work. This essentially includes a whole bunch of stuff that Dark Machine is using in their shaders, such as the RGB to HCV function, warp world function, blah blah blah. This is just required. I believe this one is slightly outdated. I could be wrong, but make sure you have both of these in your Unity project. And then, of course, in the editor folder, our asset bundle build script so we can actually build an asset bundle. I'm not going to go through all the details of building asset bundles. That is something that is better off learned through documentation. But essentially, we go into here, our shader, and modify it as we want. So what I had to do, since the darkmachine.cg Inc. is outdated, possibly, I just had to manually add in this HSV adjust function, which I added in manually. And then in here as well, I manually added some parts to the light, specifically this NDC float and this distance to camera float. I don't know why these aren't included. I might just have an outdated version, who knows. But this function I had to add myself, and then these two sort of variables in the light input structure I had to add myself. Not too difficult, works just fine. Well, after I added those, works fine. Then from there, what I am doing, since mine is pretty simple, I just at the very bottom, I just put in my own little hue shift shader code. This is pretty simple. All it is doing is that it is essentially grabbing the hue saturation value from our color, like the final color, and then doing a hue shift based on the stamina amount, stamina outline color, specifically the RGB. I essentially use the stamina outline color as the parameters for the shader. Turns out pretty well, though in theory you could just set these parameters manually if you're creating your own weird, insane shader of like, okay, I want, for example, this parameter to be just like a 1.54, I don't know what you want to do. I just did it this way so that I could have multiple hand cosmetics with different little hue shifts. That was just a personal thing of mine. Then from there, this is all that I really inputted. This is all that really matters, and then turn the color. Simple. So from there, what really makes it special is actually building the asset bundle. So I have the shader set to asset bundle, our PWK S2H.bundle, along with the material. This is just a base material. I just create this material, just created just a random material, and set its shader as the one I created here, as this here. So from there, what we do now, we just build that asset bundle using our build asset bundles that should be given from this whole editor script. And once that's done, they should appear in this asset bundles folder. What I did is that I essentially grabbed this and put it into the mod. You know, usual mod loading in an asset bundle. Makes it interesting that this asset bundle has the shader and the custom material. Now, the third and final part was the actual hand cosmetic. So in the hand cosmetic, in the JSON specifically, what I did is that I put global material base as item hand cosmetic Phoeboi stamina to hue material. What this is doing is this is the same name as my material in here. And then what the code is doing is that it is searching for, hey, this wasn't found in the base game, so this item hand cosmetic Phoeboi stamina to hue material was not found in the base game. Let's check our asset bundle and load it in from there. That's why I say it's sort of three parts that are working together to do this. Then from there, it works pretty flawlessly. So I can just give any sort of hand cosmetic this material. So yeah, it's not that difficult, it's just weird. Especially the code part. The code part, I think, is the weirdest, most uncomfortable section. After that, it's just creating an asset bundle, copying over the shader that the White Knuckle devs have graciously given us, and then just adding whatever changes you want to do. I did a simple one with a hue shift, but you could technically create pretty much any shader you wanted, as long as you're careful not to fry your GPU. That's always the most important thing about shaders, don't fry your GPU. But yeah, works pretty flawlessly, I think. Only real issue is the code, which is weird, and then the CG ink possibly being incomplete. That might just be me having an outdated CG ink. That's what I did to make mine.